one other important thing, I'll share with folks and leaders is don't ever get bored of your mission. Don't ever get bored of talking about your mission. I kind of insert it in almost every discussion I have with my team. So that's absolutely critical.
Welcome to the Leading Minds podcast, where we delve deep inside the minds of the top life sciences executives. Join us as we unravel how they think, their vision for the industry, the purpose that drives them, and how they are moving the industry forward while fueling growth for their companies and their teams.
This is Leading Minds, and I'm your host, Jasmeet Sahani. In every episode, we meet a leader who has made a lasting impact in the life sciences industry and continues to drive the industry forward. We go beyond the name and the title to unravel their personality, their beliefs, their mission, and most importantly, to understand how their brilliant minds are changing the world for the better. Before we get started, I want to thank our exclusive sponsor, Axtria, a leading global provider of cloud software and data analytics solutions to the life sciences industry. Now, on to today's episode. I'm truly honored to introduce our guest, Michael Bailey. Michael serves as President and CEO of AVEO Oncology, and he's also a member of the Board of Directors. Before the acquisition of AVEO by LG Chem in 2023, he was the President and CEO, and prior to that, he served as AVEO's Chief Business Officer and Chief Commercial Officer. Michael has over 30 years of experience in the pharmaceutical industry. He joined AVEO from Cinta, which is now Madrigal Pharmaceuticals, where he served as Senior Vice President of Business Development and the Chief Commercial Officer. Prior to joining Cinta, he led the worldwide commercial organization for ImClone Systems, which is now Eli Lilly. He managed the cardiovascular development portfolio at Genentech and started his career in the pharmaceutical industry at SmithKline Beecham, where he held a variety of commercial roles, including sales, strategic planning, and product management. Michael received a BS in psychology from St. Lawrence University and an MBA in international marketing from the Mendoza College of Business at University of Notre Dame. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jasmine, for having me on the show.
Michael, let's start with your professional journey, which has been nothing short of spectacular. In your own words, can you please provide a quick overview of your professional journey? And it would be great if you could start with how you got into the pharmaceutical world.
Yeah, I'd love to. So as you mentioned, I joined the healthcare industry about 30 years ago, 1992. And I did that as an intern with SmithKline Beecham when I was doing a semester in London for my business degree. So it created a big opportunity, and I was afforded an amazing opportunity to work on finding the next CNS drugs, which ultimately ended up resulting in a couple licensing deals that they did that were very successful down the road. But I spent about 5 years at SmithKline Beecham once I graduated from business school, and was very fortunate to have had an opportunity to join a program they called their Executive MBA program. It was about 2 people a year. It was founded by Jerry Carabellis. Really ended up yielding some tremendous leaders like Ron Square, who went on to be the CEO of Array, was sold to Pfizer. Alexander Hardy was another one, was recent CEO of Genentech, is now CEO of BioMarin. So I had great opportunity to work with really inspiring people through that opportunity. But what the kind of big lesson learned as I went through that 5 years was I got a good view in the various roles I played to see where we could do better in kind of drug development. And one of the things that really struck me was the need for really bringing the patient, the customer, to the very early parts of development. And at the time, Big Pharma didn't really do that. The wisdom of Jerry Carabellis guided me to really identify the biotechs. He said, if you're looking to really integrate commercial customer in the early stages of development, these new things called biotechs that were emerging are the place to go. And that's how I ended up at Genentech. Had just really fulfilling, as you mentioned, I worked in new products there. So it was really kind of applying that commercial view to the early stages of development, which I think is really one of the great attributes of biotech. And as such, I never looked back. And I think you gave a nice overview of my career, and I'm very humbled by very kind words you had to say about that. But, I've been very privileged and fortunate to have earned the trust and encouragement of a host of colleagues and mentors through my career. And I've been very blessed with the fact that people have given me opportunities. I don't say an opportunity to fail, but when you succeed in those kind of big steps forward, that is a gift that, I try to pass down to my people and think about that as I'm developing other people in my career.
Thanks, Michael. You've been very humble by saying that you've been blessed, but I believe a lot of it comes with hard work. And the last time we spoke about your journey, we talked about a lot of the setbacks and failures, and I was amazed by the perseverance you have shown in those difficult times. Can you highlight some of the setbacks you have faced in your career and how you managed those?
Yeah, I would love to. I certainly have had a very colorful career and a lot of experiences, bad and good, all of which we absolutely need to learn from. And I'll make one point. This is my my favorite quote. It's my quote. But there's a fine line between perseverance and insanity. So, I don't think the takeaway should be, just keep doing the things you're doing and hoping for a better outcome. You really have to understand the situation. And very candidly, I'm basically a data junkie. I spend a lot of time understanding all the data, and you can never ignore any of it. But the other thing that's important is being an active listener. And just in particular, the two situations that probably are most notable in my career were one with ImClone Systems, where we got a refusal to file from the FDA based on a study design. And the other was at AVEO in 2013, when we got a complete response letter, again, based on a relatively flawed study design that ultimately ended up confounding one of the important endpoints, which is overall survival. So the important lesson learned, through all this is really have to be an active listener. And in particular, I'm a firm believer that the FDA and the biotech industry in general are on the same mission. And the FDA is really, truly there to help make sure that we are bringing the best, and safest, and most effective therapies to patients. And so it's really critical to listen to exactly what they're saying. And sometimes it's you kind of have to read between the lines to really understand where they have concerns that they're trying to highlight to you. And I think in both of those situations, maybe a bit of a failure of active listening, hearing what you want to hear, not what they're necessarily telling you, possibly had an impact on getting those negative responses from the FDA. So, again, firm advocate of really actively listening in those situations. So in both of those, the drug worked. The data was good. It was, when you took a step back and you divorce yourself from the emotion of, what just happened to you and to the company, and you really evaluate what you have as a therapy and how you can do a better job in developing it. That's why I persevered. I think if it would be a very different story if, the drug was hurting people or, was not being effective. Those are the kind of things you have to just walk away from, take your losses, and move on to something different. But in both of the situations with ImClone, with Erbitux, and then AVEO with tivozanib, or now Fotivda, these were very good drugs and are very good drugs that are still helping people. And, for me, it was a very clear decision to continue to persevere. And a lot of people, a lot of management don't find themselves in a situation that they want to try to drive that forward. But if you keep that kind of laser focus on why we're doing what we're doing, which is improving the lives of patients, then it becomes very kind of clear call to action. And that's why I found myself persevering through those. I'm very happy to say in both cases, we've had great success. As you mentioned in your introductory comments, ImClone was bought by Lilly for, I believe, over $7 billion. And then recently, LG just acquired AVEO after a successful launch of Fitivda in 2021. So the acquisition was 2023, but the launch was 2021.
And Michael, I love the quote and your thought process here, because you talked about perseverance and the difference between perseverance and insanity, and also how you are approaching it to actually make it real, because you're not going by the emotion, you're taking that out, but taking a data-driven approach and also looking at what's good for the patient, which is kind of the central tenet of what the pharma is supposed to do, which is just amazing, right? How you've been able to come out of these setbacks and prove success. Now, I also want to talk about some of the mergers and acquisitions, because I know you have a very good point of view on when you're looking to merge a firm, what are the things you need to look for? Can you share your point of view with our audience on that?
Yeah, I'm glad to, and I can use the LG Chem as a good example. I mean, so the M&A lead on the LG side, his name was Jay Win, and I used to call him Jay Win Win Win. And the point being, we really wanted to have a win-win-win, and we really set out to do that. So first, it's got to be a strategic fit, and one of the components of a strategic fit is having a common mission. And as we went through the integration after the acquisition, our mission statement only changed 2 words. So we used to be, to improve the lives of patients with cancer. We changed it to leverage innovative solutions to improve the lives of patients with cancer. That was the only change. And, frankly, it was made a reality because LG Chem is such an innovative company that they're bringing us a whole development pipeline that I think we can move forward. But going back to the J win-win-win, the first win for us was for the patients, because as we all know, the industry was kind of tight for funding in 21, 22, and even early through 23. So, we needed capital to be able to invest in our very promising pipeline. And frankly, we didn't have what is often referred to as the investor mandate. So for our second program, ficlatuzumab, which is the HGF-c-MET inhibitor that we're right now exploring in a phase 3 study in head and neck cancer. But we couldn't get the investors committed to doing that. But LG was very much committed to it. So the first win is for the patients, because we're now executing on that phase 3 study, which is an incredibly high unmet medical need of HPV negative head and neck cancer. The second win was, you think about your team. And one of the things that LG wanted strategically was to have a footprint in the U.S. in oncology. And importantly, that footprint needed to have a commercial component to it. So we fit the bill. I understand they looked at literally hundreds, if not thousands of companies, and we floated to the top. I think our launch, which happened in the middle of COVID, went very well. So we're very proud of that. But what LG really wanted was the people in addition to the portfolio. And so that was the second win. Was I've gone through transitions, and we always hear these nightmare stories about acquisitions where everybody gets escorted to the door and the new company comes in and just takes over. It was a really nice situation that the folks at LG really wanted the people. So the team was intact. So that was the win for the team. And then our shareholders, who had been very dedicated to the company, certainly made a nice upside, a nice win, in that we were one of the fastest growing companies, our largest increase in 2022. So overall, it was a win-win-win. But, you got to think about all of those things, or at least I did, when we went into this acquisition. This acquisition was the best thing that we could have done for all of our constituents and our stakeholders.
Yeah, I loved how you bucket those win-win-win outcomes for everyone, which is just great. Now, shifting gears to the present day, can you tell our audience what areas you're focusing on and your current roles and responsibilities? I ask this especially in the context of some of the ambitious goals you've set for yourself and your company.
Since our acquisition by LG Chem, collaboratively, we've laid out a blueprint to become a global top 20 oncology-focused biopharmaceutical company by 2030, an ambitious goal by anyone's measure. And historically, the companies would be ranked by, either their revenues or their market cap or some other financial term. We really approach this vision, this goal, in terms of our mission. How are we proceeding to achieve our goal of improving the lives of patients with cancer? How do our customers see us? I go back to Genentech. It wasn't the biggest company when I was there 20 years ago, but it was clearly a company that everybody in the industry, specifically the oncology industry, had a tremendous amount of respect for. And that's what we're kind of striving for, to be the best that we can be. And I'll go back to, some of the other, we talk about the turnaround stories that I had in my career. And I remember the day after we got the RTF, and a lot of people were saying, I got to leave the company. And, I was kind of going down a different path, saying, with all that's happened to us, we're going to have to be beyond reproach. We're going to have to not just be as good, but we're going to have to be better to regain that kind of reputation and the trust of our customers and the patients we serve. And again, as you mentioned, when Lilly bought ImClone Systems, they actually kept the name. And we were sitting, and one of the things we were contemplating is, do we have to change the name? Because there was all this kind of ancillary stuff that went on with the RTF that was not something that people were proud of. And we decided to keep the name, and the fact that Lilly saw enough goodwill in the name based on how we had conducted ourselves. They kept that name and that reputation. And the same thing here with LG Chem. We've kept the name AVEO because there's more than just revenues. There's how you conduct yourself, the ethics that you bring to the table, how you put the patient first. All of those things, to me, are the key components of becoming a top oncology company.
Absolutely, Michael. And your work in oncology is saving so many patient lives. And there's no cause more noble than helping patients suffering from this vicious disease.
Well, it's so funny you say that, because I always tell my team, first, one other important thing, I'll share with folks and leaders is, don't ever get bored of your mission. Don't ever get bored of talking about your mission. I kind of insert it in almost every discussion I have with my team. So that's absolutely critical.
Absolutely.
We'll continue the conversation after this quick message from our exclusive sponsor, Axtria. Improving commercial and patient outcomes. That's our goal at Axtria. We are at the forefront of life sciences digital transformation with the most advanced cloud software and data analytics solutions, enabling companies to manage data, derive artificial intelligence-powered insights, and streamline business operations across the product lifecycle. Because of our deep expertise in the life sciences domain, we are the top choice for life sciences companies for their digital and business transformation initiatives. We work with all of the top global life sciences companies who consider us their true partners, driven primarily by our most important differentiators, our people, and our inclusive and progressive culture, which is focused on developing the life sciences leaders of tomorrow. With every project, we are helping our customers achieve commercial success. But more importantly, we are helping them improve health outcomes for patients. See what we can do for you at axtria.com.
My next question, it centers more around the industry evolution that you touched upon a little bit. I would like to get your perspective on the trends you are witnessing and key drivers of this evolution.
Sure. So I did a little research on this just to make sure that I'm speaking with some authority on it, because we all have our opinions about where the world's going. But according to NASDAQ, the global biotech market is valued at 1.22 trillion and is expected to grow to 3.21 trillion by that 2030 date that we talked about. So that's pretty good growth. It's an exciting area to be in. The last couple of years have been challenging for biotech as we went into JP Morgan in the beginning of the year, which usually sets the tone for the year, and even the end of 23. You're seeing deal making return to normal, which is incredibly important for biotech companies. I very much take the approach that it's great we can develop single drugs, but I really feel like the major steps forward are going to be when we're combining drugs with one another to benefit the patients, and those take deals because everybody can't have an entire portfolio of drugs that they can combine. I think we've heard from MassBio that there's optimism for exits. The last few months of 2023 saw a flurry of M&A activity, and we're seeing some of that early. A little bit of a stock rally for public biotechs, and we hope to see that continue. As far as we're here in Massachusetts, and when I came here 15, 20 years ago, I couldn't have even imagined how much this industry in this area could possibly grow, but it's exceeded my expectations. And last year, $13 billion was spent on Massachusetts biopharm companies, an increase of more than $7 billion from 2022. Large pharma are sitting on $1.4 trillion in cash, basically, and a massive loss of exclusivity looming for a few of them. So that's a formula for continued growth and opportunity for the biotech sector. In addition, at JP Morgan, there's lots of discussions about IPOs, which has kind of been muted over the last year or two. 2024 looks like it could be a good year, but we'll see what happens. The last thing I'll just talk about is a little bit of the macroeconomic markets. As we enter 2024, signs are pointing towards a more stable economic situation than we saw in 2023 and 2022. That could be more access to capital for growing companies like in the biotech sector. Inflation seems to have regulated. We might even see reversal of some of the rate hikes we saw last year. But with that said, there's also headwinds, and will continue to be felt with the impacts of the IRA and other geopolitical forces that can impact pricing and deal making. But hopefully the optimism will override the headwinds and will continue to grow as an industry. I think biotech's got a lot to bring to the table and has learned a lot of lessons in the last couple of years. I mean, innovation continues, so that's always the most important thing, I think. But, this last couple of years have really, the lean times have forced companies to streamline operations, to not persevere on things that don't make sense and are not good investments of the financial resources they have. Given the large pharma situation, I feel like alliances and partnerships are going to increase. Again, we'll provide additional cash infusions for good development. And like I said, just the hubs of innovation like Boston and Cambridge continue to strengthen. And then you've got companies or countries like Korea really taking an active look at the U.S. as the opportunity for their growth. So all these things I think are really good for us. With our partnership with LG Chem, we're positioned very well. We're well resourced to capitalize on our growth opportunities through either development internally, but also through acquisition and co-development agreements or partnerships.
Yeah, thanks for sharing those insights, Michael. Definitely, as you said, there's so much potential in this market. And I always believe that this industry has the most amount of innovation that actually has the most noble cause as well in helping patients and helping people suffering from the diseases, right? So I think it's phenomenal. Now, going back to your professional journey, and we talked about so many ups and downs you've been through. Can you tell our audience what were some of the most important events, decisions, or people who had a deep impact and helped shape your career?
Oh gosh, there's so many people that I could just go on all day. I mean, some of the key mentors are the late Henry Termeer, who was the founder and leader of Genzyme, was also the chairman of the board here at AVEO. His successor on the chairman of the board, Ken Bate, was another important person. One of the things I've also kind of encouraged CEOs as I sit on other boards is to, don't be afraid to get a coach, especially first time CEOs. And, I was very fortunate to have Mike Bonney help me through the early times of my CEO role. So I think those are a couple people, from a mentor side.
Right. There's so many industry professionals who would really benefit from your experience and learning because, as you're sharing these thoughts and how you have navigated your journey and people who have inspired you, what is your advice for professionals who are aspiring to be leaders of tomorrow? What are some of the key attributes they should develop?
Yeah, I thought about this, and what really it comes down to is don't try to take shortcuts. I see many aspiring leaders, people coming up through their career, and they feel like they're not progressing quickly enough. And so sometimes they'll miss out on truly becoming an authority in something. And one of my mentors and a long-term friend, Gerald Mosley, put it best. He defined the 5 E's of life and career. So teens are for excitement, 20s are for education, 30s are for experience, 40s are for equity, and 50s are for enjoyment. And, just a little color on that. Where I see people getting caught up is especially, I think folks in their 30s, they tend to, they've been in the business for a while and they want to keep going and try to move up that ladder. And that experience is really, I think, one of the most important things to really try to gain. So again, going back to the GSK or SmithKline Beecham example and that opportunity, I was able to get experience in a variety of different functions. So it gives you that perspective that you have to look at things from all sides. Don't come with a myopic view that your narrow perspective is the right perspective. And it links back to that whole thing of being an active listener.
Absolutely. That's fantastic advice for the professionals trying to become leaders. Now, it goes without saying that you're extremely busy in the multiple roles you play. And as a thought leader who's helping shape the industry future, can you tell our audience how you continue to learn and grow despite your busy schedule?
Yeah, so it's funny. I have on my desk, I have a framed quote from Gandhi. It says, live like you will die tomorrow, learn like you will live forever. And, one of the most stimulating aspects of the career in life sciences is that it's constantly changing. We are always getting new data, new information, new insights. And, you stay ahead of these trends, you really need to be an active learner. I do a lot of reading, journal articles, and a disciple of clinical trial outcomes and really understanding all aspects of it. And again, active listening is really important. I learn from everyone, from all of our stakeholders, investors, customers, KOLs, as well as seasoned corporate officers, but also the newest and youngest employees there's always something you can learn by just really listening to them. I've learned from my mistakes. It's probably one of the biggest areas I've learned. I've learned from competitors, but importantly, as you said, you have to be humble. You have to own your mistakes. And what I always say is don't try to be the smartest person in the room. I'm certainly not that person. So it's easy for me to adhere to that. But it just really comes back to that importance of active listening and respecting the views and opinions of others.
Thanks for sharing your views on learning and growth, Michael. It always helps our audience to hear directly from some of the leading minds in terms of how they continue to grow in their careers. Now, as the final question of the main segment, it would be great for the audience to learn how you balance your personal and professional lives and how you manage time across, on one side, work, and on the other, family, friends, personal interests, and maintaining your health.
Yeah. No, it's a really great point. And finding a balance as a busy biotech CEO can sometimes seem impossible and certainly daunting. I try to do some very simple things. One is I commit my weekends to my family. So I'm all in during the week. I really try to partition off the weekends to be with my family. And it's not just, there's a couple different beneficiaries. One is I enjoy it. Two, I think my family enjoys it. My wife doesn't complain too much. But three, my employees appreciate it. Nobody likes to be on 24/7. So if we can kind of partition those weekends, I think that's important. You mentioned the other thing, that's often overlooked is staying healthy. I think it's important that you actually schedule time for yourself to do something healthy for yourself. It's hard to do it. What I personally do now, I walk 45 minutes to work every day and back. And, it's hard. I'll be on the phone making calls and doing all that stuff, but I'm doing something good for myself. So just find something that works for you. And then last but not least, it helps to really have good people on your team, strong leaders you can trust. The most liberating feeling of a CEO is to confidently be able to delegate responsibilities to a trusted team member. So this brings us to another topic, which is you really need to get the right people on the bus and get the wrong people off the bus quickly. And one of the things I think has often happens to people is someone's not working out on the team and you just put off the inevitable decision for weeks, months, sometimes even years. And that creates a real cancer in the company. So I've found one of the most liberating things is if someone doesn't fit in your organization, then remove them quickly.
Absolutely. That's one of the great piece of advice I think every CEO or every manager actually should follow, because it's very easy to hire people who don't fit in or who are not the right fit for the culture or the team. And then they have like a lasting impact even when they're gone, because now they've already done the damage.
So true. And we have a simple set of like 5 values that every year we revisit with the leadership team, and we kind of recommit ourselves to those values. And part of committing to that is not allowing those people to deviate or violate those values in any significant way. And that I have, generally speaking, if you do a good job hiring, you're going to have competent people, but it really, a lot of it comes down to whether they're a cultural fit or not.
Yeah, absolutely. You can have the most competent, genius people on your team, but if they are not a good fit, the productivity and the efficiency and everything is going to go down.
Yep.
All right. Thank you for that, Michael. Now on to some fun questions. I will be asking you some rapid fire questions that you will need to respond to quickly. Are you ready for that?
I'm ready.
All right. What comes to mind when you hear the word leadership?
I would say commit yourself to a purpose and a mission. I touched on that a little bit, but purpose and mission is what gets you out of bed. I always say it's a privilege to work in this industry. But the other, there's one other thought I had on this, which is we use one of our values is realistic optimism. So, you always hear CEOs have to be optimistic. We've added the word realistic to that. And I think that's an important kind of balancing act. And we shouldn't just be overly optimistic that everything's going to work out well. We have to be realistic that we're going to run into some challenges.
That makes a ton of sense. Name your mentor or mentors or someone who has inspired you.
Yeah, so I touched on that earlier. Henry, Tamir, Ken Bate, Mike Bonney are really, really an inspiration to me.
Awesome. What's some of the best advice you've received?
Best advice I've received? I think probably something along the lines is provide people with opportunities. One of our other core values is developing our team. And so we tend to have a matrix organization so people can get exposure to a variety of different things and grow a little quicker than maybe if they were in a big pharma in a siloed organization. So we always let people fail. And we don't want to be afraid to fail because you will not grow as quickly if you're afraid to fail. So that's maybe I'd characterize it as let people fail, because that will ultimately lead to future success.
Fantastic. Name your favorite book or books.
Shoot. So One of the things my son always says when I say, "Do you like this or this?" He says, "Do I have to choose one, Dad?" So I do enjoy reading, and what I used to do was try to alternate between leisure reading and business reading. So I'd swap a book out, but it's kind of all starting to blend together as I'm getting older. But I'm reading 2 books right now. One is Quit by Annie Duke, and it's kind of exploring this idea of when is perseverance not a good idea. Yeah, when should you quit? She talks about Muhammad Ali or climbers that are ascending Everest and should have turned back, but they didn't. So really trying to understand that, when to hold them, when to fold them. Annie Duke was actually a poker player. And then the other book is kind of brings me back to my college days. As you mentioned, I had a psychology major, and I did an honors thesis on the work of Kahneman and Tversky. And then Michael Lewis recently wrote a book called The Undoing Project, A Friendship That Changed Our Minds. Really kind of insightful book on the work of Kahneman and Tversky and how people think about things. So again, I can't tell you whether these are business books or leisure books at this point in my career, but it's kind of along that line of continuous learning.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you for that, because I do exactly the same thing. I have this switch between fiction and business, and I have always multiple things that I'm reading. Yeah. So it's different areas you're getting knowledge from. So it's all good. What do you do in your free time?
I'm an avid skier and a lover of music. So that is what I love to do to just relax.
Awesome. You can have dinner with any person in the world. Who would be the 3 people you would pick?
Oh, that's got to be my wife and 2 kids.
Absolutely. That's, I think, the best answer. And the last one person you believe is a leading mind in our industry and you would recommend featuring on this podcast.
Hands down, I would say Hal Barron. I had an opportunity or privilege to work with him back in Genentech. He's had an incredible career through leading at SmithKline Beecham, and he's on some new adventures of trying to reverse aging. Hopefully, he's going to be very successful in that venture, but an incredibly bright gentleman who's changing our industry.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing your journey and advice with our audience. By the way, that was amazing rapid fire responses. All of them. Just love them. But thanks again for sharing your journey. As I mentioned when we started, your journey has been special and you continue to make a lasting impact on the industry. It is making a difference not only for the companies you have built and worked for, but also for so many patients who benefit from the therapies you're bringing to market. So many, many congratulations on all the success. And thank you so much again. It has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Well, thank you so much, Jasmeet. It has been a pleasure for me to have this discussion with you. And thank you for what you do.
Absolutely, Michael. To the audience, you are the most important part of the show. Because of you, we are the top show in the life sciences industry. Thank you so much for joining us today, and tune in soon for the next episode of Leading Minds.
Thank you for listening to the Leading Minds podcast by Life Sciences Voice. Please share and hit subscribe with your favorite streaming platform. For more information, please visit our website at lifescivoice.com.